Stations.
Sure. I think we only need it for the Kimball Sand because that's one that we started. But I would
Perfect.
like to welcome you to the board. Brad has been appointed the newest planning board member to replace Kerry Martinek. And I did mean to welcome you to the board. But
Yep.
I'll have you read that right before the Kimball Sand one because these
Perfect.
other applications. Well, actually, can he be? Well, no, he can't. But he can take part in the A&R because he didn't miss a meeting.
Correct. The only application that statement is applicable to, Brad, is the public hearing on Southwest Cutoff.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for choking.
Nope.
I have the A&R. I'd be happy to share it if you'd like. And also the applicant is Kyle Jacobson. I see that he's sitting in the audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bill, do you mind bringing him in?
Yep,
And Lori,
doing
if you
that
don't
now.
mind, you could present it for us.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is an A&R that just involves the swapping of land. So I have my arrow pointing on the parcel that would be swapped. So as you can see, there are two existing house lots. So they both meet the minimum lot size requirement with this parcel. This parcel actually doesn't put either of them into non-conformance. You can see that they're not proposing to swap any frontage. Both of these lots do have less than 100 feet of frontage, but there is a provision in our zoning bylaw that says that if you are on a roadway with a radius of less than 100 feet, then you only have to provide half of the legal frontage. So that's 50 feet instead of 100 feet. So I did not see any issues. Initially, I did have some issues. So I emailed the applicant. Those issues were addressed. So I don't see any problems with this A&R.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant has joined us, does he have any comments that he would like to add? And if you don't, that's okay.
No, I'll say, Amy. I just came in case there were any questions.
Okay. So you're just taking a piece of the property from your neighbor and it's going to be added to his property? Is that, it's not really a swap, Lori, is it? Is it?
It's not
He's
actually
getting-
a swap, no.
No,
He's
just
actually-
conveying, he is obtaining this parcel of land.
That's correct.
It
And
looks
what
like,
was-
so your driveway is now on your property?
That is correct. That was the whole reason. Yeah, I have a driveway easement now, and we just wanted to get rid of the driveway easement.
Okay.
Okay, is that what those dotted lines are there? Is that an outline of a driveway? I see. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any concerns? Questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Yeah, just a question for the applicant. Why was this built? I know this is probably before your time, it's before my time, but why was it built this way that you have to kind of swap land to put your driveway on your own property?
Well, the reason it was like that, the parcel 22 Buck Hill to the right in the view was the last lot on the street, and the driveway actually used to come up on the side of the driveway where the land swap is occurring. It came up on the opposite side, and it was moved to the, if you're looking from the street, it was moved to the right side of the property so that that last lot could go in.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else on the board have a question? Okay. Hearing none, I make a motion to endorse the plan entitled Approval Not Required Plan of Land in Northborough, Mass. Dated 1/14/25, prepared by Real Map Info LLC, 420 Lakeside Ave, Suite 403, Marlborough, Mass.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Millie Milton,
yes.
Brad Blanchett,
Yes.
Bill Pierce,
Aye.
and Anthony Zaitin.
Aye.
Okay, it is approved. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
I have a good
Bye.
night.
Night.
Actually, I was thinking Lori, so that would be my motion, right, since I made it. But in the future, if someone wants to say so moved and then a second, I just didn't want to stop it because we're already moving forward. That's what, so I would be the one that made the motion then, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the second item on the agenda for tonight is going to be the continuation of the common driveway special permit in residential A district for 3, 7, and 11 Reservoir Street. We received an email from the applicant asking to continue the public hearing to March 18th. So I'm just going to make a motion. There's
Or-
nothing
or
really to
maybe, do you just want to call for a motion? And then have somebody move it?
Is that how she did it? I'd like to. How
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
So normally she would say, does somebody want to make a motion to say such and such? And then somebody would say so moved. Or she
Okay.
just asked for the motion and somebody would make the motion.
okay. Or someone could read the motion if they want.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing to 6 p.m. on March 18th, 2025.
Do I hear a second? Bill seconds. All right, roll call vote. Brad, sorry, Brad Blanchett.
Happens
That's gonna
all
be a
the
tongue
time.
twister
Don't
for
worry
me.
about it. Yep. Brad Blanchett says aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Yes.
Bill Pierce,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. The third item on the agenda for tonight is going to be the continuation of the definitive subdivision application for 0, 200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff. Map 106, parcels 2, 3, 5, 19, and 20 in the Industrial Zoning District and in Groundwater Protection Overlay District 3, submitted by Northborough Properties Realty Trust to construct a 2-lot industrial subdivision. At this point, I'm going to have our newest member, Brad Blanchett, read the statement. He missed only one meeting, so he was allowed to go and watch the video of our first meeting and read all the materials to go with it, and he will read an affidavit, David, to state that he has done so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, Brad Blanchett, member of the Planning Board, certify that I examined all evidence received at the January 7th, 2025 session of the Planning Board relative to the application of Northborough Properties Realty Trust for property located at 0, 200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff, Northborough, Massachusetts, for the definitive plan approval resulting in the creation of 2 building lots, a cul-de-sac, and associated improvements. Said evidence includes a video recording of the January 7th, 2025 meeting that I missed.
Thank you.
Amy,
Okay.
we have
Yes.
some folks in the audience, James Almonte and Wayne Kimball.
Okay. Do you mind adding them, Bill?
Yep. I actually see a few James Almontes.
Just let me know when you think everybody's in.
There's another James
I think-
Almonte that's still
Yeah,
sitting in the audience.
I just promoted that one.
How many do we have,
I think they have
James?
to accept it.
I'm here.
Will you be the one presenting tonight? Or taking questions, James?
Hear me?
We can hear
Oh.
you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Are we missing anyone else from your team?
Hold on a second.
This is Wayne Kimball. I'm in. I can see you. You can't see me.
Okay.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can.
Yes.
All right. I can barely hear you, but I will. Here we go.
Okay. It looks like you've been busy, you and Lori and Josh and Vinny, since we
Yes.
last met.
Yes. And I apologize for the confusion. And I got stuck in traffic and I just got home. So I switched from my phone to my computer. So that's why there was
Well, that's okay.
couple of me out there, but yes. So again, James Almonte, Land Design Collaborative. So obviously we continued the hearing from the previous one. Just as a follow-up, definitive subdivision for Kimball Sand. We did receive comments from various staff members. We have responded in writing to the latest round of comments. We did review Lori's draft decision with some conditions, which we received today, and we have no comments, no objections, no concerns with what she has pulled together for that. So, we're okay. Like I said, we have responded to the comments. We did get a second round of comments from Vinny today, and it looks like a couple of those will condition of the approval, which we're fine with. So.
Okay, thanks. Lori, you feel you're fine with everything?
Yeah, I did work with the fire chief, DPW, and Vinny to make sure that the wording of the conditions was what they wanted it to be. And of course, we did receive the last minute comments from the health agent. So he had no concerns, no issues, no suggestions for conditions.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any additional questions?
Yeah,
Actually,
Madam Chair.
sure.
So since I am new to this and I did review everything that was sent to me, so this question is for the applicant. So Mr. Almonte, you mentioned there's no construction for the next several years. It'll continue as gravel based on market demands. Based on market demands, what is your estimate for how long do you think this current operation will go on before you think there is a shift in the market?
Well, that's more of a question for the Kimballs, but I have asked that question myself to them in the past, and the answer that I have gotten was probably at least 2 years of current operations with the gravel mining. Again, that could be longer depending on market demand if things do slow down, but I would say at least a couple of years at this point.
Okay, and so my next question, just more for my own education, is what is the shift in the market that would make the Kimballs change the operation?
Sure. It's just a slowdown in the construction material needs, slowdown in the housing market, things like that. That could potentially slow things down.
Okay.
So right now, they've been very busy. So if things do shift and slow down, then it could extend the gravel mining operation longer.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, believe me, I drive by there a bunch of times. I shop up there, and there's not as much rocks. There not as many rocks as there used to be even a few years ago. So it seems like things are going well, but
Right. Sure.
And so my final question, so the industrial subdivision, you may not have an answer for this, and that's fine, but based on what you've seen from other companies like Kimball, like what kind of things can possibly be built on a property like Kimball? Any type of high level example? You don't have to be specific examples, but anything high level.
Well, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but it is a wide open piece of property.
Yeah.
You know, it has been zoned industrial, so it is, you know, it is amenable to any of those types of industrial uses. You know, it's a big open flat piece of property. So, you know, right now we've prepared this definitive subdivision as a 2-lot subdivision, just to kind of keep it simple with the short little cul-de-sac road. So we just wanted to be as flexible as possible, but they don't have any you know, prospective buyers at this point, or tenants or anything like that. So it's more to just keep their options open, and you know, there is no nothing to be said that they won't follow the current zoning. So they just, again, wanted to keep their options open.
Yeah, no, I wasn't, I mean, it's a good chunk of land. It's a great
It
piece
is.
of property right by Route 9 and Route 20. So I was
Right.
just curious, but
Yep,
thank
it's
you
an
for the
ideal
answer.
location. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Questions? I think as part of a subdivision, they would have to come back. So this
Mhm.
gives them the opportunity to build the road, but any application that came forward would have to come back to us. And
Oh, no, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Yeah, I read that in the application. I was just kind of curious. I'm just using my
Oh, no,
imagination of
I
what
think
could
you had great
go in there.
questions. I just wanted to, because those are questions I had asked too before about, what could be there
Yeah.
and will it come back to us? Because it will. Because one
It
of my
will.
questions would have been for some of the developments, we had street trees along the road. But that could be something when it comes back and we know what's going to be there, we could add the street trees.
Mhm.
And Lori, you had mentioned something about concrete sidewalks. So is that something we have to decide tonight?
Yes, so of course I had made the recommendation for concrete sidewalks. Admittedly, that isn't specified in our subdivision rules and regs. In our subdivision rules and regs, it says bituminous. Usually in commercial and industrial applications, you like to prefer to see the concrete sidewalks because of maintenance reasons and also aesthetics. They hold up a lot longer than the asphalt sidewalks. So it's a personal preference, but certainly it's up to the board. I know the applicant would prefer to do the bituminous.
Does the board have any input?
I
We
guess
can ask. Oops,
yeah, the
sorry.
only thing I'd say, so this subdivision or this road is not likely going to be the configuration when it's completed, I imagine. Is that kind of the assumption we're taking or not?
Well, the way it's being designed, it could be, we're approving it to be built the way it is laid out and the way that staff has reviewed it. So unless they come back and do a change to the subdivision, it's going to be built the way it's laid out in front of us today.
Okay.
And we do require sidewalks to go all the way around. So I guess what Lori's suggesting is having those to be concrete.
I mean, we can suggest that, but what's in the rules and regs is what's in the rules and regs, and that's, what we all sort of agree to. If we need to change the rules and regs, then, let's do that, but that's not here in front of us now.
Okay. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah, I mean, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
I mean, so, going back to my experience on the zoning board, when we approve certain things, we approve with conditions. I mean, I don't know how this works on the planning board, but can it be a condition that it needs to be concrete sidewalks?
It could be.
Can be, yeah.
Okay.
And they can agree or not agree.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how it worked
Negotiate.
on ZBA. And so like we want this done, we want it done right. We want it done the way it works and fits into our master plan, then make it a condition.
I agree too, for 60 acres, and I think it would be, if it's an industrial subdivision or a commercial subdivision, I think the concrete sidewalks will be needed.
I
Madam
agree.
Chair, there is a hand up in the attendees.
Sure. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Bob, do you have any questions? Lori, before I go to public comments?
I'm
No.
also,
Okay. Now, this is my first time. If there is a public comment, Bill, can you help? Do you have
Yep.
to unmute them?
Done.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, hi, this is Michael Horgan, 17 Reservoir Street. I just had, I guess, a little question maybe, I'm not quite sure for who, but when this parcel gets, when the gravel and material operation closes down and then it phases into something different, where would, like the slope stabilization and all of that stuff, is that being approved tonight or is that a separate sort of approval? Like how does that handle? I know there's some lots been taken out, and I'm sure those slopes have to be addressed before anything else can proceed. So is that part of the shutdown process for the first operation, or is that part of the approval for whatever might end up in there? Thanks.
Lori, do you mind? Thank you.
so when they are proposing to actually build something on the lots, that would be part of that approval. So they'd be required to go through site plan review at a minimum. And they may be triggering a special permit as well, depending upon the use. But yeah, so because the slopes are kind of towards the rear, at the outer edges of the property, we really only get into the slopes that are associated with the cul-de-sac at this point. So the subdivision approval is primarily dealing with the construction of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, thanks.
So if I have no more comments by the board or by the staff, does someone want to make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
You're muted.
Aye.
oh gosh, now I've lost my place. Did I already call on you, Bill?
Yes, Bill.
Okay, and I think I called Millie Milton.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm an aye. So now the motion has been, we've closed the hearing. Now we're gonna, sorry, I'm new at this chairing, and this is a subdivision. So the criteria for the board's determination, should I go through that, Lori, or do we have to deliberate?
You may want to deliberate, and then when you're ready to vote the waivers, then you typically go into the well, it's up to you, you're the chair, so whichever order you want to go into. I'm just speaking to the way Carrie typically did it, but
Okay.
it's your ball game, so.
Well, today in preparation, I went through the subdivision rules and regs. And I did notice, compliance, other than the waivers. I went through them and I know Lori has gone through them and Vinny and Josh. So I did notice there was compliance with everything except for what they were asking the waivers from. I don't know if anybody else on the board has any concerns with anything under the subdivision rules and regs, or if you want me to go through it step by step. It's up to the board in a way. Or I can just go through the criteria.
I think going through the criteria might make sense.
Sure. Okay, so the criteria I have is under 10-28-010. You want me to pull it up? I did, I can pull it up on my screen. Make sure I have the right thing. Okay, does everybody see the criteria? I mean, the subdivision rules and regs?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So, following the public hearing, the criteria for the board's determination would be the completeness and technical accuracy of all submissions. And I really do feel that Lori, Josh, the applicant, they all went through all of the rules and regulations in part of the subdivision.
Agree?
Do you all agree?
Yep.
Okay, the second criteria is determination that the development at this location does not entail unwarranted hazard to safety, health, and convenience of a future residents of the development or of others because of possible natural disasters, traffic hazard, or other environmental degradation. So one of the waivers is for the traffic impact study because there isn't a use there right now. There is a condition in our decision if we approve it, that they will have to do this traffic impact study when they decide the use, when they come back. Is everybody
I
okay
think
with that?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else anyone wanted to add? No? Conformity with the design and construction standards of the regulations. Lori, did go through all that, and Vinny and Josh. Determination based upon the environmental analysis were submitted. They didn't need to do it because it was only 2 lots. That the subdivision as designed will not cause substantial irreversible damage to the environment, which damage could be avoided through an alternative development plan. I think the bylaws say that you have to have 5 or more lots to go through an environmental analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think they are doing though the stormwater reports and everything else that goes along with the decision. And they're
Yes.
working with Concom.
Yep.
Okay, conformity with all applicable zoning area requirements. The 2 lot sizes and the frontage meet our zoning. We won't go through the zoning requirements until they pick a use. So I think they're all set there. And then consistency with the purposes of the subdivision control law. Okay, so approval of the planning board in respect to such subdivision plan shall be a majority vote of the board. But before we go through that, I'm wondering, do you want me to bring up the decision and go through the conditions that go along with this before we make a vote?
And again, I think that would be helpful, again, just for Brad to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Sure.
Appreciate that.
Mm.
Just gonna see. I'm gonna stop sharing. I gotta find the decision.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but actually, right now, Bill.
My Zoom changed to one little window. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna go to the beginning. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is decision by the board. Lori added that Brad read his affidavit and joined the decision. And then there are quite a few exhibits, correspondence, waivers. So the two waivers we're going to ask for tonight has to do with the impact report and the open space, both of which they'll have to do when they come back. So here's the decision conditions. So the applicant will comply with the bylaws, rules, regulations. Provide notice if they sell it. Prior to definitive plan endorsement, they'll have to file a bond. Now, Lori, do they have to do that now, or that's when they go to build it?
So before definitive plan endorsement, so what they have to do is address the conditions that say prior to definitive plan endorsement, you will do these things. So there are a couple of plan changes that are discussed here. If you folks wanted to include the condition about concrete sidewalks, in my opinion, it would be best added to letter B.
Okay.
And then they will provide a Mylar of the lotting plan. They usually provide a Mylar of all of the sheets, but they only need to record the lotting plan. And so at that time, they will have to provide a type of performance guarantee. I suspect it'll be a covenant. So you will accept the covenant first. That's my recommendation. And then make the motion to endorse the definitive plan. So that will probably happen in a couple of months, I would imagine.
Okay, so nothing tonight to do about the covenant.
Nope, nothing tonight.
Okay, so how does the board feel while we're at condition B? How does the board feel about the concrete sidewalks?
I think it's a nice ask.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what would the alternative be?
It
Bituminous.
would be bituminous concrete.
Good. So I think based on what it's zoned for, concrete makes sense. Have that as a condition.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay,
100%.
how about Bill?
I'm just curious, how the applicant feels about that.
Well, the public hearing's closed.
Yeah. I really have a concern asking for more than what's already in our bylaws, our rules and regs, right? We have the rules and regs for a reason, and we have to follow it just like, everyone else does. And so, by making on the fly changes to the rules and regs, I'm not sure that that's something we want to start getting into. I think that's where we start to get into trouble.
I mean, but I don't think that adding something is necessarily a change because it doesn't say you can't have concrete. It's just, in my opinion, it's they can agree with it or not agree with it. We wouldn't be able to deny it based on that.
Well, this is, if it's a condition, they have to do it.
If it's a
But
condition, they have to do it. So we're telling them they have to do it if they want to make this driveway.
But we
But
did it for
if
Bartlett
they were
Street.
to say we would not agree to that, I think we could say, well, we can't deny it then.
No, I think now the public hearing is closed, so if we add it to the condition, they'll have to do it. They can't. It's like when we did the Bartlett subdivision, we had quite a few conditions and
Right.
yeah.
Right. But
So
they
this would be
agreed
a
to all of
condition like that.
Right. But they agreed to all of those beforehand.
Yeah, it was a
Right?
discussion. I agree.
We had a discussion with them. I don't know now if they agree to this or not. And so by us just saying, we're the arbiters, we're going to say that you have to do concrete whether you like it or not, even though our rules and regs don't say that, to me is a concern.
But I think also when you're looking at conditions, you can apply it to the specific application. And I do believe in this particular application, it's warranted.
Can we no longer weigh in on this now that it's closed, or?
Can we open the public hearing again, Lori, and ask them?
Yeah, can we reopen?
Sure.
There you go. I make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So it's open. Now you can
We're fine with
comment.
concrete. We're fine with the concrete sidewalks, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
just trying to make things easier and save some time.
Yeah.
Now, Lori, should I keep it open while we go through them anyways? Because we can go through these conditions with the public hearing still open, right? And I'll just close it after.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just in case there are any more questions, we'll leave it open
Sounds good.
now that we've reopened it. Okay. So we'll add the concrete sidewalks. And so letter C, Lori, was added today. That was from Vinny.
Correct.
Mounding analysis. Okay, so prior to installation, they're to submit a full set of stamped engineered plans. Do you guys want me to read them all? Sure, can. For B, they submit elevation drawings for the proposed sewer pump for the planning board and DPW. Submit a full impact report. That's what I talked about with the waiver. Pay $7,500 to the town of Northborough for the special account. And that's for inspections, right, Lori?
Correct.
Mhm.
No,
By an
I don't.
engineer?
The DPW typically doesn't like to do inspections of larger projects, so they've told me they prefer that this would be given to a consultant.
Okay. E, install the sediment control barrier to prevent the movement of material to resource areas or from leaving the site, and have the installation approved by Conservation Commission. So this will go through Concom. Attend a pre-construction meeting with the planning director, engineer, conservation agent, building inspector, DPW, fire chief to discuss the construction schedule. 5 is the hours of operation. That's what we have on all of our conditions. That exterior work is 7 to 7, but if you're building something, you can continue working inside. On a monthly basis, after the commencement construction, the construction supervisor shall, to the extent required by the planning director, meet with the planning director during town hall office hours to provide a project update. And stop me if anyone has any questions. Number 7, inspections shall be conducted at appropriate times. Number 8, no mature trees will be disturbed or removed beyond the silt fence except where the planning director, in consultation with the tree warden, determines they're dead, damaged, diseased, or impact site distance.
We have a tree warden?
Yeah, it's the DPW director.
Oh, okay. I thought so. I'm like, we have okay.
Then they have to have a dumpster and a porta potty, water truck, so mitigate the blowing and spreading of dirt and dust. Water services designed with the DPW, sewer with the DPW. Fire hydrants will be designed with the fire department. Regulatory and warning signs to be installed shall be consistent with MUTCD. So is that if there needs to be a traffic light, or that's different?
That's if, ultimately there ends up being any like traffic warning signage or, ultimately make a decision to say no right on red or a stop sign or, whatever could come up. Kind of a blanket statement that we included and a couple of other industrial projects.
Okay, so that would be worked out when we knew the use. Prior to issuance of the lot release or reduction of bond, the applicant shall complete the following. Submit a completed stormwater system report to the consulting engineer, prepare an as-built with all the details. This is a new one today. Was this from Vinny too?
Now, this is me.
Okay.
Because this is proposed to be either an industrial subdivision or a commercial subdivision, I thought that it may be prudent to have it be privately owned. Just because the level of activity that may come to this development. So usually the roadways wear out faster in a big box retail or an industrial subdivision than they would in a classic residential subdivision. So I thought that this would be prudent to kind of put out there for you guys to consider, and also for the applicant to consider. And it's my understanding that they don't have any issue with the private ownership. I know the DPW doesn't isn't really on top of stormwater management in particular. So they would appreciate not being charged with maintaining the stormwater system.
And this will be a private road or subdivision anyways, right? So this just,
Yeah, so this is a two-part condition. So the first part of it was, let's see. It used to be in red so that I could find it easily. Oh, here we are. It's under findings of fact 3. And then this condition cements it.
okay, does anyone have any questions? Does the applicant have a question or anybody on the board?
So Lori, is this being stated just because it is a private way, right? Correct?
No, I mean, typically subdivision ways would be owned by the town and maintained by the town. But just in my experience as a planner, industrial subdivision roadways wear down faster. And they also are built to different standards than a typical residential subdivision. So my recommendation to you folks is that this should be a private subdivision. You don't have to go that way. If you prefer town to own the subdivision, then we can strike these.
No, I actually think it makes sense. I just wasn't sure why we didn't have it in our bylaws as a regular condition of a industrial subdivision.
Well, so this is why, one of the reasons why I mentioned that I really, really want to update the subdivision regs. They haven't been updated in 23 years. And they are very, very, very outdated in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense too. It's kind of like Northborough Crossing. The town doesn't own those right of ways, right?
It does not. No, in that case, it's a driveway. It's not a roadway. So
Interesting, yeah.
it's owned by the folks who own the shopping mall.
That's
Okay.
considered a driveway?
It is. Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, wow.
okay.
Okay, I'm all set with this. Everybody else?
Hmm.
Good.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, no sodium-based de-icing agents. The stormwater facilities shall be maintained in accordance with the document entitled Long-Term Pollution Prevention Plan. Exterior lighting shall be dark sky compliant, consisting of full cutoff shielded lights and include a warm lighting color.
Mm.
And any proposed material change or substantial modification to the roadway shall require application for and approval of an amendment to this decision. Okay, so if they decide to build a longer road and subdivide it more, it has to come back.
Correct.
All of the improvements shown on the plan, including all items specified as conditions of approval, shall be fully constructed within 8 years of the date of endorsement of the plan. And that's when it runs out anyways, the time for holding the zoning is 8 years.
Yeah, that's why I put it at 8 years. Typically I would give a shorter time frame. But because the freeze is for 8 years, that's what I gave them.
Okay.
They can certainly come back and ask for an extension.
Okay, hearing all those, does anybody have anything else that they want to add or change? Lori's gonna change and add the concrete sidewalks. But other than that, is there anything else?
Not for me.
That's it for me.
Nope. And the applicant, are you all set with those conditions?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So Lori, should I close the hearing again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Does anyone, do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
aye.
Millie Milton,
aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. The hearing is now closed. Does anyone have anything else to say before we vote on the waivers? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to grant a partial waiver from the Northborough subdivision regulations, sections 10, 12, 060, requirement to submit an impact report? Oh, wait. Oh, I
Yeah,
did open for,
I had mixed those up. You had sent me an email right before that. So let me just double check and make sure I have the right.
Section?
The right thing here.
The right section number?
Yeah,
Let's see, 10, 12, 060. Yep, that one's correct.
Okay. And the other one you updated too? Oh, it's just in the conditions where it was wrong.
Oh,
Under,
okay.
it was under 4C. The
Okay.
submit a full impact report is 10-12-060.
Okay, so I had it right in the waivers and wrong in the condition.
So you update the condition?
I will.
Okay, and since we're doing a motion for the partial waiver of the open space, do we need to add that also as part of the condition?
It's up to you.
I think we should, so we don't forget it, when it comes back in 8 years. Someone might not read the waivers, but they might read the decision and the conditions. That would be my input. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. So what Lori did is, there's 2 waivers, so she added a condition that we have to come back to that in the future. But it's only there for one of the waivers, and I was just saying that we should add it for the second waiver, so we don't forget in the future.
yep, I agree.
Makes sense.
So if we add that as a condition, it should be a standalone condition. It should not be part of number 4.
So it's gonna add the conditions to go to number 23?
Correct.
Okay. Just gonna write that down, okay, so I'll start that motion again. Do I hear a motion to grant a partial waiver from Northborough subdivision regulations, section 10-12-060, requirement to submit an impact report. Given that the future uses of the lots are unknown, the applicant shall submit a full impact report for planning board review prior to the initiation of construction activities associated with the subdivision approval. Do I hear a
So
motion?
moved.
So moved. I
Okay,
think someone beat me to it though.
you're right. Bill made the motion, and do I hear a second?
Second.
Brad will second. Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Motion to grant the waiver is approved. Do I hear a motion to grant a partial waiver from the subdivision regulations, section 10-36-080, requirement to provide open space per MGL, chapter 41, sections 81-0 and 81U. Given the future uses of the lots are unknown, the applicant shall submit a plan for open space as part of the site plan approval process for development on the lots.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I'll
I'll do
give
the second.
Millie. Okay, well, might be Anthony because he seconded it.
Okay.
Sorry, Bill. So Millie was first and Anthony seconded. But I'll call on you first.
Okay. Aye.
Roll call vote, Bill.
Aye.
Brad Blanchett. It's gonna get me.
You're gonna get it right by the next meeting, Amy, but
Say
I'm
Brad.
not.
Okay, and Millie Milton
Aye.
and Anthony Zaitin.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That motion to grant that waiver is approved. Do I hear a motion to grant the application to allow the construction of a subdivision way and associated improvements subject to findings of fact 1 through 10 and conditions 1 through 23 as shown on the definitive subdivision plan entitled definitive plan industrial subdivision for 0, 200, 220, and 250 Southwest Cutoff, Worcester County, dated November 25th, 2024, last revised January 28th, 2025, prepared by Land Design Collaborative.
So moved.
Do I ever hear a second?
Second.
Okay, a roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. The motion to grant the application is approved. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks.
all your time and effort and your help getting this done. Appreciate
All
it.
right, well, thank you to you too.
Good night.
All right. Have a
Good
great night.
night.
Thank
You
you.
too. Okay. This is what's tricky for me as chair is like, all right, now you gotta flip to the next thing without getting confused. There's so much paper. Okay, so next on the agenda, make sure I didn't forget anything. Before we go and open the public hearing on the zoning bylaws, I just wanted to finish the discussion of the bylaws because I wasn't able to attend the last meeting and we still had some discussion left on the inclusionary zoning. So I just want to grab my paperwork on it.
Amy,
Yes.
I just checked my email and saw that John Eichman just sent his comments on the zoning.
Oh my gosh. Are there a lot of them?
I haven't even opened it yet. I'm
Ah.
forwarding it to all of you.
How big is it?
I'm just wondering,
Let's see.
is it something we should go through now or next meeting?
Well, I know he had, because we talked about it, he had comments on the inclusionary zoning bylaw. So if we're going to be talking about that, we might want to see what his comments are.
You
Oh,
just
I'm
you said
going
you
to,
sent it. Send receive.
Let's see. All right, let's see. I can share it if you want,
Sure.
or do you want to talk about it next time?
It's up to you. Is it a lot? Should we open it and, or should we wait till the public hearing's open and then go through it?
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let me
we
just-
probably should discuss it during the public hearing, since that's feedback to the public hearing notice.
Okay. Let me just pull up my paperwork for inclusionary zoning. I just wanted to
Oh.
start, what?
What, all those comments, sorry.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay. You're ahead of us. I'm gonna pull up all the zoning bylaws and scroll down to the inclusionary zoning. Just have to open up my screen. This is the memo that you had sent to the Board of Selectmen. So I just want to put in some background. There's been a lot of talk this year about housing. Per the state, we were required to do the accessory dwelling unit, which we were already pretty close to what they were asking us to do. We had allowed them by right a couple years ago. But another way to add affordable housing is the inclusionary zoning. Right now, we're at 10.23%. And as a town, we have to stay over 10%. So the ways that we can add housing is if we go under 10, there's a 40B. There's the friendly 40B. And right now, the CPA and the housing association, what is it? What do they call themselves in Northborough? Affordable Housing Association, but they come forth with ideas for the CPC. So they use CPA money to add housing, but you can only do like 1 to 4 units at a time because it's really expensive. So in other ways, towns try to stay above it is they do what's called an inclusionary zoning. And this bylaw is the private developers add units when they're doing housing units. So I think we had gone through some of it, the purpose and intent. We've gone through did we go through all of this before? The purpose and intent is to add housing. And then we had a couple of definitions that the state uses. The affordable dwelling unit, affordable housing, area median income. So the subsidized housing inventory is what we need to stay above the 10%. Lori and I met and we had discussed any project that results in a net increase of 10 or more dwelling units, whether by new construction or altering a building, would trigger this bylaw. Assisted living facilities, 10 or more. So it's trying to catch, even like Brad, you guys at the ZBA, there was that assisted living where they have 88 units. This
Mhm.
would catch that. So then they would have to do some affordable housing units just to help keep us above the 10%. That's what this bylaw is doing. It's trying to catch big.
Yeah. So sorry about, I'm sure. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a perfect example. When we had that discussion, we had asked the applicant if they wanted to do 40B or not. And, regardless of what their answer was, this kind of makes it cut and dry as far as, okay, you want to put a development in like this, you have to set aside X amount of units for 40B.
Yes.
Just just kind of on the record, I just want to say the fact that we are Northborough, the town of Northborough is over 10%. And the last time I did this research, I think was before COVID, and we were only one of 24 towns in the state of Massachusetts that is over 10%. So it's not just a check the box, okay, we're over 10%, we move on, but we're already there, we're already ahead of the curve. And this is just to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve. And the
Yes.
fact that we don't want unfriendly 40B projects. You look at some of the other towns, Southborough's dealing with this, Weston's dealing with this, Wayland is dealing with this, where you get force-fed projects that you don't want. The fact that we're over the 10% threshold, this keeps us above the 10% threshold, and we're not force-fed unfriendly projects. So I think this is a great bylaw.
Yeah. The things where, as us as a board, where I think where we can make some decisions that we didn't talk about last time as part of the bylaw is, well, we can decide as a town, do we want it to be when you go above 10 or more dwelling units? Some people have like, oh no, I was thinking the 15%. So we have it, if it's 10 or more units, that they have to do 15% as affordable housing. Some towns have it where if it's apartments, you have to do 15 to 20%, but if you're single family houses, then only 10% of the units have to be affordable housing. So that's one number that could be discussed as a board if we so choose to do that. When Lori picked the 15%, it's because we did the feasibility study for MBTA, and their number was 15%, but that was for more of like apartments, not single family houses. So to me, the bylaw is pretty straightforward, but where it gets tricky is when we get into the density bonus. The density bonus is something that Lori brought forward. So the density bonus is, so if we do the 15%, I'm just trying to explain this. So if it's, I'm going to use 100. So if there are 100 houses being built, 15% of them now have to be affordable. And we have to round up if there's odd numbers, or maybe I should do 10. Sorry, this is hard for me to describe. So if we do 10 units and we do 15%, that means you have to build 1.5 units, which you can't build 1.5, so they round up to 2. The density bonus allows 2 additional market rate units. So if they're doing 10 units, 2 of them have to be affordable. They're now allowed to do 2 extras to help make up for the cost associated with it. So now they get to do 12 units on a site that normally did 10. So that's kind of what I wanted to run by the board, is the density bonus. I want to know what you think. I'm not sure what I think, but it makes it more feasible for the developer because it offsets some of the cost, but it also adds to the density of the area. And another idea that Lori added was 20% of the total number of dwelling units within the development can be residential uses not otherwise permitted in the underlying zoning. So that might be a trigger for some people too.
So
Because now, huh?
Sorry, I thought I thought I was on mute. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So
You're
now,
gonna
like,
love Millie.
there's a new table here. So say you're building these 10 units up in residential A, and you can they allow single family dwellings, but they don't allow duplexes. But under this new chart, if they have to do affordable housing, we're saying that up to 20% can be a duplex. This is what I wanted to run through with the board. I wanted to have them look at the chart, do you agree with this? Do you not agree with this? And, I don't think we even have to decide tonight, because I know this is a lot to take in, and we're getting new impact, like feedback from Attorney Aikman, which I don't even know what he said. That might affect this. I have no idea. But this is where I feel like the bylaw is cut and dry until you get to the density bonus. That is something that I think the board might have input or might want to review further, or might have questions. One question I had for you, Lori, is that the original, it used to say where affordable dwelling units are to be accommodated on the locus subject to it used to say special permit, but then you put inclusionary housing provisions. I'm not sure what the difference in those two would be, or why it shouldn't just be back to the special permit.
So what I was trying to do here is to distinguish between a special permit for use, such as a multifamily special permit, assisted living, mixed use, duplex, versus the special permit for the inclusionary housing provisions. So I wanted to make it clear that that's what I was talking about. This special permit, not that special permit.
You only need
The
one special
multifamily.
permit, right? Overall,
No, you would need, under this, the way the bylaw is written, you would need multiple special permits.
you would. That was a question I wanted to ask Attorney Aikman, is we went back to special permit totally. But I was reading a lot about it over the weekend, and Beverly, I think it was, that the state was using for an example, that if you go over the 10 units and you have to do your 15%, then it is by right. And then that the only special permit is when you do the density bonus.
So I jumped ahead and couldn't resist and read some of his comments on the inclusionary zoning, and he addresses that in his comments.
Oh, okay. Do you want to let us know what he said, or you want to wait?
I think we have to wait till the public hearing.
Okay. So I think this was the only part, at least for me, that I thought as a board, we have to decide. Do you guys agree with doing an inclusionary zoning? Because we don't even have to do it if there's a lot of heartache. And if we do it, do we do a density bonus? When I did the review this weekend from the state, I'm gonna pull up, I took some notes. They said about 50% of the towns do the density bonus, I think. Let me see. Let me pull it out.
Don't you want to get feedback from the public though, before you make any decisions one way or the other?
Yep, I just wanted to read this to the board. That there was a study done in 2018 and 2019. 140 communities adopted this inclusionary zoning, and there are 255 programs, but I don't know what they mean by that. But half of them provided for a density bonus, and a third of them allowed for off-site affordable units, which is what we're doing. So, yeah, no, I can open it to the public now. I just wanted to call it out to the planning board because we didn't finish last time talking about it. But
Can you provide a list of those towns that did go along with that to us at some point?
they have a map. I can give you the map, but I
Sure.
can send you the link. So I
Yeah.
have the report and the link, but they didn't list the towns. They only showed the map and they had little green dots.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
yep. I know. I looked at that years ago too. Yep.
I'm just
And I
curious as
tried to
to
make
what
a list,
towns.
but then I'm like, I didn't have enough time in the day to like go through them
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If you could just send that, that'd be great to look at some point.
Sure, and I can also send you there were 2 documents that I was reading from the state. I can send that to everybody. Okay. So I'm gonna, well, I can keep sharing my screen. Does everybody wanna, move forward and go to the public hearing and we'll just talk about all the bylaws? And then we can go back to the inclusionary zoning as part of the public hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Or
think
does
that makes
anybody
sense.
want to talk about it at all before we start the public hearing? And again, we have 2 public hearings, don't we, Lori?
Nope,
At
just
least?
one.
Oh, I thought we had to do 2.
Nope.
Okay. When, or I know I asked you this in an email, but I don't have it in front of me. Do you know when these, I know you already sent them to the Board of Selectmen. Do you know when they have to be finalized, all the wording?
Um, I don't know the specific dates, but I've been told mid-March.
Mid-March. So we'd have one more meeting, you think, to make any changes after this public hearing before the final wording? If you had to guess, it sounds like.
Oh, we have March 4th,
Yep.
and then the next one after that is March 18th.
Yep. Okay. So now, next on the agenda is the public hearing for the zoning changes. But I'm gonna have to read a public hearing notice, unless anyone has it open and wants to read it.
I do not. Where is it?
Let's see. Did you email that to me, Lori?
I did.
Okay. So I'll go to my emails.
Let's
Yeah. Thank you. All right. The public hearing notice for the Northborough Planning Board. In accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Northborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on February 18th, 2025 at 6 o'clock or later for the purpose of seeking public opinion on proposed amendments to the following sections of the Northborough zoning bylaw, Chapter 7. Complete text of the proposed amendments is available on the Planning Department webpage, www.town.northborough.ma.us Planning Department. Section 702.040 definitions, Section 703.050 site plans, Section 705.020 classification of uses, Section 706.030 supplemental regulations, Section 709.010 land clearing and grading, Section 709.040 signs, Section 7-10 special regulations. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to COVID-19 measures, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Is that all I have to read? I don't have to read the whole script again, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Now the public hearing is open on the zoning bylaws. And Lori did a great presentation that will be used at town meeting. And then I thank you, Lori, for all your work on that.
Yep.
And then afterwards, we decide who wants to present zoning bylaws, and then you can update verbiage if you have to. But if not, then I think Lori did a great job. Lori, would you like to present the PowerPoint
Sure.
since we haven't voted? And Brad, I don't know if you want to get up there in front of the town meeting to do presentations this year, if you're up for it.
I mean, if it's part of the rookie hazing, I mean, you kind of got to do it.
I think I had to do one. I think mine was
that's right.
pretty easy.
I'm not low guy in the totem pole anymore.
Yay.
I have to say, I'm much happier preparing the presentation than giving the presentation.
Yeah.
You never know. We always say you never know which one is going to be the trigger.
Right, right.
All right. So let me, oh, shoot. what happened here? Okay. So I thought I'd just start from a little bit of overview on the Affordable Homes Act. So this was signed into law by Governor Maura Healey on August 6, 2024. There are various sections that pertain to our zoning bylaws, section 7, 8, and 10 in particular. So a couple of these sections actually went into place on August 6, 2024. The section that just went into force was February 2nd, 2025, and that has to do with the accessory dwelling units. So there needed to be additional clarification on what the state meant by this new law. So they prepared some guidance material for the municipalities, and they're supposed to be preparing a sample bylaw for all of us to refer to, but as far as I know, that still hasn't been released as of yet. So the long and short of it is that there are certain provisions within our current zoning bylaws that conflict with the new law, which therefore makes those portions unenforceable. So the purpose of the ADU, or accessory dwelling unit requirements, is they're really trying to encourage the creation of more housing. So I'm sure all of you have heard about the housing crisis in Massachusetts. And those of you who are looking for a home understand how outrageously expensive housing is in our state. So this was a response to the housing crisis. They're trying to diversify the housing stock, make it more affordable for people and households of all configurations and ages. So that's pretty much the point of these changes. So I wanted to call your attention to the first 3 articles in the Board of Selectmen letter. So we'll get to those in a bit more detail after this presentation. So those first 3 articles are kind of summarized here. So the first is it would amend the definitions of dwelling and accessory dwelling unit so that they comply with the state's new definition. It would allow ADUs to be detached standalone structures subject to minor site plan review by the development review team. So that is a group of folks that currently exist. It consists of the building inspector, the planning director, the assistant DPW director, the fire chief, and other relevant town staff on a project by project basis. So sometimes we bring the conservation agent in if we're dealing with wetland issues or projects that are over an acre of disturbance. And then the health agent comes into play when we're talking about septic systems and wells. So next, it specifies that if it is within or attached to a single-family home, the ADU shall maintain a separate entrance that complies with the state building code. So that's part of the law. It would eliminate a current requirement that we have in our accessory dwelling unit bylaw today that says that the property owner has to live either within the principal dwelling or the ADU. So that is something that the building inspector can no longer enforce. It modifies the maximum size of an ADU. Right now, the maximum size is 800 square feet gross. Under the new regulation, it says that an ADU shall not exceed half the gross floor area of the single family home or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. And it specifies that a detached ADU shouldn't be taller than the single family home. It shall be located to the rear or side of the single family home and shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from other buildings on the lot. So the next zoning amendment that we're proposing would establish a lot shape factor. So that you can see in this drawing, we have some really, really funky lots here in Northborough. And they snake around. This is kind of a common issue that we have, especially in our more rural areas of town. And this configuration really aims to maximize the number of lots that you have on a parcel of land. But the end result is that it's really difficult for property owners to figure out where the land is that they actually own. So it becomes very difficult to figure out where you can put a driveway, where you can put your shed, where you can put your swing set. And it's definitely not ideal and causes all sorts of problems. So what many communities have done is adopt a lot shape factor. So it's actually a mathematical formula which discourages the creation of irregularly shaped lots. So it is designed to favor lots that are as rectangular as possible. So the end result, of course, is more usable land for the property owner. And there are exceptions, of course, for reduced frontage lots. So those are lots that have 50 feet of frontage and then open up in the back. So this is actually an example of a reduced frontage lot, often called a pork chop lot. And it also provides an exemption for large parcels. So you may have a 10-acre parcel that is already irregularly shaped, and you may want to carve off some smaller lots. So it won't, so say you're interested in carving off an 80,000 square foot lot, and giving that to your child, it doesn't penalize you for having the remaining land be odd shaped. So next, the next proposed amendment has to do with the merger of lots. So some background information on the merger of lots doctrine is that historically, when two non-conforming lots came into common ownership, case law provided that the two lots would merge to eliminate or reduce zoning nonconformities. So a perfect example is, let's say that two lots, 10,000 square foot lots, were originally created maybe 20 or 30 years ago, and the zoning changed somewhere along the line. And instead of 10,000 square feet being the minimum lot size, now the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. So when Bob Frederico and I see one of those lots, if they're not built on, or maybe only one house is built on, in our minds, those two lots have merged. So even though on paper they may appear to be two separate lots, in our minds, they are one lot. So the property owner wouldn't be able to get a building permit for both of those lots. So if you had an existing single-family home, that would be fine. You have a conforming lot that's 20,000 square feet. You do not have two 10,000 square foot lots. So the Affordable Homes Act changes that. So what the Affordable Homes Act says is that if those lots are at least 10,000 square feet of area and have at least 75 feet of frontage, and they are located within a single family district or a zoning district that allows single family homes, then they are actually buildable. So our proposed amendments put some parameters on that. So here is an example for the parameters that I'm talking about. So it specifies which zoning districts you could do this in. It says that each lot must be served by public water and sewer services. It says that at least 50% of the area of each lot must be contiguous upland, exclusive of wetlands and other resource areas. And the vacant lots shall be used for a single-family home containing no more than 1,850 square feet of heated living area and not less than 3 bedrooms. So this is in the law. So our amendment just complies with the law as to the size of the single-family home and how many bedrooms it would have. The extras that we added into the zoning bylaw are these top 3 bullets.
Can I ask a simple question?
Yeah, of course.
Are you talking about 2 lots that have to be abutting or adjacent, or just
Yes.
2 lots anywhere that is under common ownership?
Nope,
I
they
don't think
have to
that's
be
as
abutting.
clear.
Yep, they have to be abutting.
Does that say so? Does it say that somewhere?
Let's see. I'm pretty sure it says contiguous, but let me just double check.
It said 50% of it has to be contiguous upland, which I didn't really know what that meant, but
It says adjacent lots under common ownership shall not be treated as a single lot for zoning purposes if.
where was that?
I can stop sharing, Amy, if you want to share yours.
Because it says that in our current.
So in the
It
Board
doesn't say
of
that in this
Selectmen
one.
letter dated January 31st.
Oh,
I believe it's on page 3.
oh. I mean, I don't disbelieve you. I just didn't think it was clearly stated on this.
Oh, on the presentation slide?
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, I can double check that.
Adjacent lots under common, yes. So is there a certain amount of adjacentness that it has to have?
You are right. I didn't say to abutting. I will add that
Okay.
to the slide. All right, so what I was talking about is this first sentence under L. Merger of lots under common ownership. Adjacent lots under common ownership shall not be treated as a single lot for zoning purposes if, and then there are all these bullets.
Okay.
So Amy, if you want to unshare, I'll share again.
And for this one, when you read the actual zoning bylaw, this first one is required by the state, right? But not 2, 3.
So the first one and number 6.
And 6. So the 2, 3, 4, 5,
And
So-
actually 5 and 6. So 1, 5, and 6 is what the state
Mhm.
says.
So 2, 3, and 4 is what was added.
Correct.
Okay. I'll stop sharing.
All right. So the next one. So land clearing and grading. So this is a housekeeping item. I think it was last year. Or 2 years ago, we added the language for notice of intent from the Conservation Commission. And now we want to expand that. So it clarifies that activities conducted under a stormwater management and land disturbance permit issued by the Northborough Conservation Commission are exempt from having to get a land clearing and grading permit. That's a special permit from the planning board. The land disturbance bylaw was adopted in 2021. It's much more restrictive and comprehensive than the land clearing bylaw. So it really doesn't make sense to have two different boards reviewing the same exact activity. It adds quite a bit of cost. It's time consuming, it's redundant. The two boards may send the applicant in opposite directions and contradict each other, in which case, what does the applicant do? So in my opinion, it's unnecessary for an applicant to obtain permits from two different permitting authorities. So this is clarifying language. So of course I came on board 3 years ago. I was informed by my predecessor, Fred Litchfield, that if somebody triggers the land disturbance bylaw, then they don't have to obtain a land clearing and grading special permit. So that's been the practice for the last few years. But it really isn't clear in the zoning that that is the case. So the idea here is just to clarify and make sure it's understood that you don't have to get both.
So I have a quick question, Lori.
Sure.
So it's 709.010, and we did used to go through that. Like if they, any land clearing or grading more than 20,000 square feet of land. Are you saying that we're not doing that anymore as a planning board?
So you would be doing it if they're in the middle. So if it's 20,000 square feet, but less than 40,000 square feet,
Yeah.
then the planning board would be looking at that project. But if it's 40,000 or greater square feet, then I should say an acre, it's not even 40,000. So if it's an acre or more of land disturbance, then it would be the Conservation Commission.
So will this make it clear, like if I'm reading this bylaw, is this gonna be clear too? Does it say that like in black and white, if it's more than 20,000 but less than an acre?
We could change that language and put it there.
I'm just
And then
thinking,
it would be doubly clear.
I just want to
which
make
I'm
it clear
fine.
for like the board or the applicant or any future board member.
Yeah,
Because I've been on the board for 10 years and like, yeah, we did go through this land clearing and grading a couple times. So I just want to make it clear for us when we're gonna have to use it and not.
Okay, yeah,
and
I
Lori,
can.
under this is everything that's in the land clearing regulations, is that also included in the land disturbance? Is everything in there?
Well, let me put it to you this way. This bylaw is 4 pages long, and the land disturbance bylaw and associated regulations is 33 pages long. So
Wow.
it's way, way more detailed than what this is. So it covers erosion control measures, stormwater. It's much more comprehensive than this bylaw.
Right, no, I understand that. I just didn't know if everything that was in the less comprehensive one is also in the more comprehensive one.
From what I could tell.
Okay.
And that goes to Concom now.
It does.
Yeah, it could have gone to the planning board. It could go either way, but I think the decision was made in 2021. It got sent to Concom.
I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Amy, did you want to speak on the last 2 articles?
You're doing such a good job rolling along.
Well, I can if you want me to.
Sure.
Okay, so the next one had to do with changes to the sign bylaw. You may recall that last year we concentrated on the highway business district. So now we want to concentrate on the other business districts. So it permits a greater variety of sign types, including awning, projecting signs, and sandwich board signs, which aren't detailed in our zoning bylaw today. It provides new and updated definitions for a variety of signs. And it also provides a mechanism for the design review committee to review wall projecting, awning, and freestanding signs in the downtown business district only. So the way that would work is that the building inspector would receive a sign permit application, and then he would forward it to the design review committee for their review. They would have to agree to meet within a 20-day period of time to review the sign and provide feedback. And then if they do not comply with that 20-day window, then the building inspector can either approve the sign or not. The design review committee has had their opportunity to comment and either commented or did not. So the design review committee in this case is advisory. So they would be providing their recommendations to the building inspector. The building inspector would ultimately be the authority either approving or denying the sign permit. So the last zoning bylaw change that we're proposing is a new section called Inclusion of Affordable Housing. So the purpose here is to encourage the development of housing that is affordable to low and moderate income households. It provides a variety of housing options, concentrating on providing housing for Northborough residents, people who work in Northborough, and veterans. It would result in units that would be added to the Northborough subsidized housing inventory. So that would help us out with our Chapter 40B compliance. And it advances goals and objectives that are articulated in the master plan, as well as the downtown revitalization plan report, which was completed last January. So this does provide for a special permit to be issued. The triggering aspects of it would be any project resulting in a net increase of 10 dwelling units or more. They can be created through alteration, expansion, reconstruction, or change of an existing residential or non-residential space. Any division of land for the development of 10 or more dwelling units, including subdivisions and A&R lots. Development of an assisted living facility containing 10 or more units. So at least 15% of the units shall be established as affordable dwelling units. They can be either accommodated on-site or off-site. And as Amy mentioned previously, there are provisions for a density bonus. The aim of the density bonus is to make it affordable for developers to create the affordable housing. So of course, the trigger here is 10 units. If it becomes too expensive for them to build affordable dwelling units, then what's going to happen is we're going to get a whole lot of 9-unit developments. So they'll go right under the thresholds so that they don't have to build any affordable units. So it's really important for the town to understand that in order to make this bylaw work and actually create affordable units, you have to make it affordable for developers to do it. No developer is going to work for free, spend a year creating a multifamily development and then end up with zero profit. That just doesn't make sense. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that developers are in the business of supporting their families and making somewhat of a profit. So that's the aim with the density bonus. So a little bit more information about that is the special permit granting authority may allow up to 20% of the total number of dwelling units within a development to be residential uses not otherwise permitted. So the concept here is that, say you are in the residential C district, and you can see under the residential C district, it allows single-family dwellings detached by right, but it doesn't allow, actually it allows two-family dwellings by special permit, but it doesn't allow cottage dwellings, and it doesn't allow single-family attached. So those are townhouses. So the idea here is that these other uses would be allowed, but by special permit. So if you had, say, a subdivision with 10 houses, then what this would enable you to do is to build one of those, so two of those units could be, well, in this case, a duplex. Or you could do, if you had 20 units, then you could do, say, a triplex, like the attached single-family dwelling. So you could do 3 of those or 4 of those. So also the special permit granting authority may allow the number of market rate units to be increased by the required number of affordable dwelling units. So in the case of a 10-unit subdivision, then you could do 2 additional. So you'd be required to do 2 affordable dwelling units, and then you could get a density bonus of 2 market rate dwelling units. So that would be 12 units total. So the special permit granting authority may vary the density and dimensional requirements specified to accommodate the additional units. So if you're talking about 20,000 square foot minimum lot sizes, so this could enable you to reduce the minimum lot size so that you can fit in those 2 additional market rate units. So that's pretty much it.
We put the TH there because I was trying to, I kept seeing single family dwelling attached and 2-family. And when I was going through the chart, I was like, okay, which one of these is the townhouse and which is the duplex? They're so close in description. I
Yeah.
can't remember why I highlighted those asterisks either. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, I changed the color because originally it was yellow and I couldn't even see what it was. So I changed it to maroon so I could see what the letters were under the yellow.
It was
But-
just for when I was trying to think it through in my head. And then I think for one of these, I think there was supposed to be an asterisk and there wasn't, or vice versa. I can go back and check though.
Okay. All right.
So should I take public comments first and then as a board we can discuss it? Or do you want to do it? Probably, since this is a public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll call out for, does anyone in the audience have any questions, concerns, comments? I see a hand going up. Okay, if you can state your name and address.
Tom Reardon, 7 Sunset Drive. And I had some questions regarding the proposed Article 705-020 on the ADU units. The proposed bylaw expands the criteria that the state has proposed in the chapter 150, section 7 and 8. And some of the things that you've included in the bylaw relate to a detached accessory dwelling shall be located to the rear or the side of a principal dwelling and shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet. Also, D says that accessory dwelling unit should be designed to preserve the appearance of existing single-family dwelling. And also F, where a detached accessory dwelling unit should be similar in form, style, and building material to the principal dwelling. So these additional requirements exceed what is in the state law. And I have a concern that Section 8 says no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit, unreasonably restrict, or require special permit. So to my mind, when you restrict the design options and require where the units are placed, and you're also getting into the question of what building materials can be used, begins to exceed what the state law is requiring or recommending. And it seems like if this is a provision that is by right, so when you want to do an ADU unit, you file for a building permit, and that would go to Mr. Federico, and now you're going to ask him to become a design reviewer in terms of form, style, and building materials. I don't think that's workable. So those are my concerns about these additional requirements in your ADU bylaw.
Do you want to speak to that, Lori, or do you want me to?
Well, I did want to point out that the 10-foot setback from other buildings is already in our zoning bylaw, so that's not anything above and beyond what any other structure has to comply with. I know we discussed this at the last meeting about shall versus should. And there were some changes made to the language where we were concerned about not complying with the bylaw. So those shalls turned to shoulds. And then remember that site plan review would be applied for any sort of detached accessory dwelling, and that would be site plan review by the development review team.
So when you have larger lots in the residential districts, 2 to 4 acres, where you often have the opportunity to pull into a circular driveway and you can arrange the main building and any outbuildings around that courtyard, this bylaw would discourage people from pursuing that as a design solution. I mean, I've done projects on Green Street where we had a detached garage with a living space above, and that technically would be in a front yard, but when you have a larger lot, you're creating its own self-contained compound, and it's not a design flaw, it's a rather attractive resolution. So my concern is taking tools out of the toolkit of the designer and making it harder to get an appropriate design for the specifics of the site. Comments?
Yeah, so Mr. Reardon, I mean, I know Green Street. Green Street has a lot of frontage, so Green Street is not a accurate example of the rest of the town of Northborough. I think this bylaw states that something that would fit a majority of the town of Northborough and our plot lines and our zoning. So I think Green Street's an anomaly, to be honest with you. I know Green Street. I know it's the big lots, and that doesn't reflect the rest of the town of Northborough.
That wasn't my point. My point was you have a variety of residential zones that could easily accommodate an additional structure, a detached structure in the side or the front yard of a large property. Certainly it wouldn't apply to RC zones. I'm not saying that, but I'm looking for flexibility for the designer. And
It
this seems to
would
be too restrictive.
It would allow it within the side yard, so it's the side of the principal dwelling. The concern is that you would just, that somebody would just plop an accessory dwelling unit in front of a single family home, which in my opinion is going to look bad. And my understanding of the state law, so of course there has been guidance materials there. You can make some requirements as far as placement of the structures are concerned.
Okay, Tom, thank you for your input. I see there's another hand up, unless you have any more additional questions about any other zoning.
Well, the last thing about material choices and making the accessory dwelling unit be built with similar materials to the principal structure. I think there's a section in the state bylaw, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 3, where you cannot restrict the use of building materials. It's also in our town bylaws. So I don't think you should even touch that issue. I would leave it up to the homeowner and the designer.
It says should, like Lori said, it's not shall, so it's not forcing. But I know a lot of towns want some sort of look that it matches in the neighborhood. So, you may design something really nice, but we don't know if everybody would. So it just says that it should be similar in form and style. It doesn't say that it shall. So you still have creativity there. It's not enforcing anything with the word should, but it's making people at least think about it, that it should fit the neighborhood. But if it doesn't, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. It says should.
Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Okay, I see Jacob Jones had his hand up first. Can you please state your name and address?
Yes. Hi, Jacob Jones, 106 Green Street. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. First, I just fully agree with Mr. Reardon's comments. Won't repeat them, but I fully am behind the same concerns he said. I am on Green Street. I don't have a lot of frontage. I have a very large lot. I don't even know what an inspector would consider the front of my house to be honest. But anyway, that's not my main comment. My main comment was on the definition of dwelling that's proposed, the change. And I do know, I've gathered that the proposed change to the dwelling definition appears to be from what the state is recommending. And so based on the state recommending something, I can see why we would propose it. But my concern is I'm not actually really sure what that definition is doing. Like, what's its purpose? What's it supposed to clarify or limit? It gets a bit confusing, especially when you consider how some of our other definitions play. But let me just give an example. And this doesn't relate to ADU. I'm generally fine with the rest of the bylaw other than with Mr. Reardon's comments. But a dwelling is when you have a permanent provision for living. I don't even know what that is. For sleeping. What's a permanent provision for sleeping? Like a bed? A bed can be moved. Is it permanent? A couch? Is that permanent? Permanent provisions for eating. What is that? A desk? A table? Permanent provisions for cooking. Is that like a stove that's plugged into a 220-volt outlet, or is it like a toaster oven that a teenager living in his parents' basement could have in his bedroom? I think I get what permanent provisions for sanitation are. Probably a toilet that's permanently plumbed and a shower that's permanently plumbed and sinks. That I can understand. But so if you have a 26-year-old son or daughter or child living in their parents' house with a bedroom where they have a bathroom and a shower, they have a bed, they have a table that they like to eat on in their bedroom and they have a toaster oven plugged in, did that single family dwelling just turn into a double dwelling? Because it has two
No.
dwellings in it. I mean, that's the kind of interpretation would like to avoid causing that kind of anyway, unless this definition is doing something, I'm not sure why to change the definition is I guess my point. That's my concerns. And I don't know, maybe someone will tell me there's a good reason why this definition's in here, and maybe none of us know. None of us know maybe the thought process that whoever, at the state decided to proposed it. Certainly the word dwelling shows up a couple times in the bylaw. Usually it's accessory dwelling unit. Well, that kind of has its own meaning that's defined. We know what accessory dwelling unit is because it's defined. But in reference to a primary dwelling, is that why it's being defined? I just don't know why it's being defined. And unless I know what's the purpose of the law that we're passing, I don't really know why we would pass it. That's the bigger picture I'm kind of getting by. Thanks.
So, Amy, do you want me to respond? So the point is, that dwelling is already defined in our zoning bylaw, but our definition for dwelling contradicts the new state definition for dwelling. So the idea here is to conform with the state definition. And I don't know if Bob, you want to expand on what the meaning of the terms are within the definition?
The building code is pretty vague on what constitutes a dwelling unit. Okay, that usually comes from the politicians in Boston making up fancy names. Typically, someplace that's eligible for cooking, living, sleeping could very well be a studio apartment. Doesn't have to be a 5-bedroom home with 4 bathrooms and a 3-car garage. So, to everybody, to Jacob's and Tom's point, the definition of either a single family home as the basic home on the property or an accessory dwelling unit. I don't want to say it's semantics, but I think it attempts to draw some sort of a line in terms of what is the master, quote, the master residence and the subservient residence would be the ADU. If you've got a house with a finished basement and a legal bedroom in the basement with a kit and a heating plate, that's not an accessory dwelling unit. Accessory dwelling units have to be, in terms of egress, separate and distinct from each other, which means to go from the accessory dwelling unit into the main house, you have to leave the accessory dwelling unit, go outside, and come in through a different door. Okay? In the case of a finished basement that you want to turn into an accessory dwelling unit, the basement unit would have to have 2 separate points of egress or ingress, and the stairway leading from the house into the basement would probably have to be closed permanently with a wall. Take out the stairway, take out the doorway. Okay, unless other type of construction accommodations are made. I've got one house right now. It's a brand new house. They've got a huge walkout basement. It would be a great accessory dwelling unit. And we're currently in talks right now about what they would have to do construction-wise to the existing brand new home to make it eligible to have a ADU in it. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the best I've got.
For me, I know when we changed it, we were trying to stay in line with the state because they're bringing forth, like Bob said, all these new definitions, and they really were thought up pretty quickly by some people in the government. And like for me, with MBTA, they always call out dwellings, and for accessory dwelling units, they're calling out dwellings. So we thought, if, at least in my opinion, if we went along with the state definition, then we thought we were being good, but who knows?
One of the things, it's a story I like to relay. I go to regional inspectors meetings where there's 50 or 60 building inspectors in the room at one time. And we've had some of these people from Boston come out and try to get listening sessions into so we can ask them questions about ADUs and all the what ifs we're coming up with from all our towns in the region. And this poor gentleman that came out, by the time he was done, I think he was curling up in the corner. He was just shredded with all the questions we had. And I think the people working on these ADU rules, I think it's an eye-opening experience for them that, it's just not, here's the rules, you go figure it out. We got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it's at this local level that a lot of that stuff has to be decided. And they flat out came out and told us, well, it's not us for you to figure it out. It's up to you to figure it out. And we'll give you some guidelines along the way, but it's going to be up to us to figure it out at town meeting.
Yeah.
So, it's one of these things that was plunked in our laps and we have to figure out the mechanics. And to be honest with you, it's kind of frustrating to walk into a room after the grenade's gone off and have to do the sweep up.
My email list with mass planners and mass planning board, it's towns from all over the state, and everybody in every town, they have a million questions on how this is going to play out. Because every town is doing it a little bit differently. It's not 100% clear. There is some leeway there. So I think every town is going through the same thing, that this is going to be or learning by fire, and there are probably going to be lawsuits that are going to set
Yeah.
what's going to be happen.
Well, one of the things, I don't want to extend the discussion too long, but one of the things is that what I see is this whole thing is going to kind of flesh out the same way the Dover Amendment did. The people in Boston say, here's a great idea. Here you go. Okay. Implement it. And over the next 40 or 50 years,
Yep.
all these nuances that come along with the Dover Amendment have been settled by the courts. And I think that over time, it's the ADU situation is going to kind of go the same route. I hate to say it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Bob, they have this idea. It's like, all right, housing crisis, accessory dwelling unit, go. But there's
Right.
so many different scenarios. I mean, every
Right.
town's going to jump on a bunch of landmines as we go. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like Jacob Jones just brought up these different scenarios, and yeah, I mean, they're good questions, they're good scenarios, but like,
It's a really complicated. The base idea is
Yeah.
great, but implementing it is a real different
right.
a basket of fish. And I'm to be honest with you, as an inspector, I'm grateful to you guys with coming up with some more defined rules that we can work with. And should versus shall is a very important issue. And site plan review and site plan approval is two entirely different things. So, I'm glad we're talking this out at this point.
I actually have a question on the sort of that definition. Is there any qualifier that would demand a permanence of this unit? For instance, I can see maybe a trailer home being put somewhere, or something on wheels that isn't permanent but could be seen as an accessory dwelling unit. How would they?
Something on wheels, like on a chassis, does not come under the building code and is not intended, therefore not allowed for permanent housing under the building code.
And
Or the
what about
sanitary code.
what about like a mobile home that's not mobile anymore?
Well, they're not allowed in Northborough to start with.
Oh, well, alrighty then.
But you have a lot of people building tiny homes on trailers, and that's a different federal regulatory agency. It's basically they're building an RV,
Right.
and the intent is for temporary housing, like going on a vacation or a cross-country trip or something like that. In terms of parking it on a permanent basis, say for longer than 6 months, it would not fly. They do not carry the same egress requirements, energy requirements, structural capacity, wind resistance, all the other technical stuff that goes into a building just does not exist on a travel trailer.
Okay, so there really doesn't need to be a qualifier about whether it's a permanent structure.
Right.
Okay.
Amy, you're muted.
Sorry, I noticed Jacob's hand is up again. Jacob, did you have a follow-up question?
Oh, just very briefly, I wanted to say thank you to Inspector Federico. The question was the answer was very responsive, very helpful. And my last comment relating to this topic, and then I'll go quiet. It was just to be clear. I understand, and the chair stated like, look, this is how the state wants us to have it. So I get it, and in that sense, I'm not saying anything's wrong with the definition. My concern is that 20, 30 years from now, I know current inspector, this wouldn't be an issue. He does a great job, but 30 years from now, there's an inspector who hasn't even been born yet, who's applying these bylaws on us, and then twists the application to say that, mom who's got 26-year-old and their grandson suddenly has a duplex because according to their interpretation of this interpretation of dwelling, they have permanent this, that, or the other. Therefore, illegally using a duplex in a zone that can't have duplexes, separate and apart from ADUs. I'm not talking about ADUs. And I'm not talking about converting a basement to an ADU. I'm talking about what if there's an existing thing that someone not on this call in the future is trying to say, well, based on this definition of dwelling, which is in the bylaw and it's the law, you now have 2 units in your home and you can't have 2 units in your home. That's the situation that I want us to be able to make a clear record for that future person that that's not what this definition means.
I think what the intent of the ADU is that the ADU is subservient to the main structure or the main residence. I think one of the biggest lines of demarcation, if you will, is the square footage that's allowed.
Right.
Okay, on a ADU, you're allowed a maximum of 900 square feet or 50% of the floor area, whichever is less. Okay, so by virtue of the smaller size, the ADU is subservient to the master size of the house. Whereas a duplex, typically those duplexes are pretty close to equal in size because they tend to make the mirrors of each other. But even if you have a big duplex and a small duplex, if that small duplex is less than 900 square feet, I would consider that an ADU.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you listening. And like I said, that's my comments, is that it maybe someone doesn't understand that that's what our intention is here, and later on tries to interpret it differently. And I think we're all on the same page there. Thanks.
You can see what he was talking about, though. It is confusing where it says permanent provisions for living, eating, cooking. What is permanent eating? But, we were just using the state bylaw, and I didn't really think about it that closely, but I can see what he's asking. What is permanent eating?
I think the state leaves it intentionally vague.
Yeah. Thank you.
I see one more hand up. Could you state your name and address?
Susie Sitzlicka, 8 Emerson Road. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Susie.
My first comment was in reference to the materials. I just want to say that we've had a couple cases of sheds that were being put in, maybe a little, we were granting allowances for being too close to property lines on the zoning board. I am calling it as a resident. We don't have a quorum tonight to be here as zoning board members, but we did talk about what materials the shed was going to be built on, or built with, and would refer to Bob with what the shed was being built of, and if it was going to be stable and everything else. I think we just had one. Lori actually went out to the property on that case, so I'm pretty sure we talked about that. And then when Bob mentioned, even though it wouldn't be allowed, like the wind velocity of a trailer, like that's something, I mean, even though you're not allowed to see like a shed must be built of wood or cement or something like that, I think when talking about the accessory dwelling units, it is something that is good to be part of the discussion, even if we can't mandate it. So that's just something that I see in cases that I just wanted to comment on with the prior caller. Something else about the signs. clarification just because I do love sign cases. So I want to bring that up. They're a great break for the zoning board. Sometimes we've had some pretty heavy cases, and I do love my sign cases. So will we, when the signs will go to the design review board, and then Bob will have, can you just explain that a little bit more? Are we not going to get any more sign cases, or are we only going to get them if they're like too big for size and everything now? Or I was confused on that for the signs.
Yeah, so so the ZBA would only be forwarded those cases that are similar to today,
Yeah.
that they need some sort of relief. So
Okay.
I know with the changes that were made last year, there was an increase in the size of signs in highway business districts,
Yes.
partly to avoid having to send so many sign cases to the ZBA.
Yes.
All
the Wegmans ones. Yes.
Yeah, so if there's an instance where somebody wants to do something that wouldn't be permitted by the sign bylaw, then you will still see them.
Okay. And then the affordable housing, for when you were talking about, the relief giving to, I do see what you were talking about, how a developer will just go to the 9 units so that they won't trigger the 10-unit rule, and how to give them a little bit relief with the density. Have you ever seen it, Lori, in your career where, if you did have something like that, like how much would they, I don't want to say take advantage of it, but like how much would a developer try to use that density rule, do you think, on a lot?
Yeah, I think it mostly will come into play with very large developments. So, in my prior community, we had an open space community bylaw that provided a density bonus for doing certain things that the town was trying to encourage. And one of those was providing a greater amount of open space. And the two developers that went through that bylaw both opted to use the density bonus. However, in both cases, so one of the developments was 99 units and then the other one was 142 units. And in both cases, it only ended up being a bonus of 2 units. So
Okay.
it was not something that was a huge windfall for them.
Right, right. I was just wondering if what we would be, like, are we going to be in between a rock and a hard place if we also have a lot, if we have a great need for affordable housing, like, do you know what I mean? If what we're going to be looking at. So
Yeah, I suspect that developers still may be interested in doing like friendly 40Bs just because there's so much money out there to do that type of development. So in that case, they'd pretty much throw the zoning in the trash anyway, and they could build at whatever density they want as long as the ZBA was okay with it. And then they would have to provide 20% of the units as affordable. So I still think that that is going to be a tool in the toolbox. But
right.
this is just a way to maybe get, for the small projects, maybe get a couple of units here or there. Right now, the vast majority of the units that are built in Northborough are very small projects. So they're A&R lots that are kind of isolated. They might be common driveways. So I think probably the biggest project that the town's seen in the last 10 years is the assisted living development that you are very knowledgeable about on King Street. And as you know, there's no affordable housing as part of that development.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in.
I did read over the weekend, you know, they were talking about the different towns in the state, and it really depends. Like they said that like Watertown had a ton of development being done. So they had like 320 units developed. But the further out west you got, there were only small developments. So those towns maybe only got one or two from the inclusionary zoning. So it all depends on the town and what you're developing. And I think in my years on the board too, I think we haven't had any developments over 10, even the small, you know, there's been a lot of small subdivisions with like 5 or 6 homes, but none of them have hit the 10. So I was hoping like this would catch something. It really triggered when someone brought up if one of the farms went or the golf course goes, you guys are going to go under your 10% because you don't have that zoning in place.
Yeah.
So this could catch that. But like Lori said, friendly 40B might even be, you know, better than the inclusionary zoning if it comes down that way, because then you do get 25%. And for the apartment buildings, they have to include all of them, like Avalon. But I know we thought this would be a good way to catch something that might trigger
Or at least
something
keep us
big.
just above that minimum.
Right,
Hopefully. You know.
right. And it would catch, like she said, the King Strength development or anything that comes down like that. It would get caught. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great start. I mean, it's going to be a work in progress. But I think this is a great opportunity though to catch some of those things and keep us above that 10% threshold.
Mm.
Laura, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I've been kind of glancing at John Eichmann's comments, town council comments, and I have some questions. I wonder if I could just share them so you can see how extensive they are.
Mm.
And I wonder if we should just table them to the next meeting because it's really difficult to
Yeah.
kind of figure out what he's trying to say in this context when we're all sitting together on a
Right.
Zoom. So I
I agree.
personally would really like to read these over very carefully and possibly, you know, you see he's got all these balloons here, so he's got all these comments in the margin. So I'm wondering if we can kind of table his comments until March 4th.
I think
can
that
see
would
his
be
block.
well advised because we're going to spend a lot of time on, I think, a very little accomplishment.
I also think for the board itself, the inclusionary zoning, maybe you guys can go through the table. Do you agree with adding these certain, you know, use types in these certain districts? It just gives the board more time too to review that part, or even all the bylaws in general. With that, are there any more hands raised in the audience? I don't
No
think
more
there
hands
were.
raised at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I'm assuming we'll leave the public hearing open then. And we'll continue it until our next meeting on March 4th.
Yes, I have no other items on the March 4th agenda at this time.
Oh, okay. But we should definitely still meet, right? Because if we don't meet March 4th, it might be too late to make changes.
Oh, I definitely think we should. Yeah.
Otherwise, if we didn't have a deadline, I would have skipped the meeting. So, do I make a motion to continue the public hearing for the zoning bylaws for March 4th or do I hear a motion to continue the hearing for the zoning bylaws to March 4th at 6 o'clock?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Okay, roll call vote, Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin, Anthony?
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry. Aye.
And I'm an I, so we'll, to be continued. Next on our agenda is old business, new business. We have two sets of minutes. Did everybody have time to read them?
Mhm.
And did they have any changes? Like I had actually a couple comments for January 21st where I would add a couple things, but I won't do it for this set of meetings, but maybe I'll reach out to I forgot her name, sorry. Brenda offline. I guess my only comment was like sometimes in our minutes, it says that the board approved conditions A through L. Like maybe we could just include those conditions in the minutes. So anybody reading them, somebody might just say, what the heck is A through L? And that was my only, but she doesn't have to do it for this set of minutes. Does anybody else have any changes to the January 21st minutes? Nope.
No.
Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the January 21st, 2025 meeting
only
minutes?
Quick question I had was actually the draft that I got was listed as January 7th. Did anybody else get that? But then the pages were January 21st.
Let me check. I have it open. Oh, you're right. It says January 7th at the top.
We'll make that change to
Okay.
January 20.
Do you think it was January 7th or the 21st?
Well, that was my question because I didn't actually look at the video.
Right. Maybe we have to wait to figure out which one they are.
I can pull up the agenda if you want to move on to the other set.
Okay.
Okay. So the meeting minutes for for February 4th were very short. Did anybody have any changes to those minutes?
Did not.
I actually
No.
wasn't even there, so I don't know if I can make the motion. Maybe someone else can.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 4th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
and I think I abstained because I wasn't there. And Brad also would abstain
I
because he
abstain.
wasn't there.
Yep.
Okay. The minutes have been approved.
All right. So that was the meeting of January 21st.
Okay.
Good catch, Millie.
Well, it did confuse me, so I was like, yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the January 21st meeting minutes as amended?
So moved.
Okay, I don't know who moved it first.
It takes
I'll
somebody.
second.
Okay, so Anthony and Millie. Okay, roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Abstain.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
and I'm an I. The minutes have been approved. Does anybody have any subcommittee meeting minutes? I mean, updates?
And yet,
Nope. Okay. Anything else to add? There is a community meeting for the downtown forum. Lori, can you fill us in?
Yeah, sure. So that is going to be next Wednesday. It should be a great night. So they're going to be showing you the preliminary concept plan, as well as renderings, color renderings that show what the street view will be if the concept is implemented. And we've been working really hard, the focus group and the consultant team, to come up with this concept. And we're really curious to hear what people think about it. Just so you know, I did submit a warrant article for inclusion on the warrant requesting $1.85 million to pay for the construction. I do anticipate that the price tag will come in somewhere around $2.1 million. So the shortfall would be met with grant funds. So we are a complete streets community, which means that the town is eligible for up to $500,000 in grant funds for construction improvements. So we aren't competing against another community for those funds, so I'm pretty confident that we would be able to get that money. However, the amount of money that we request has a direct bearing on specific tasks that are eligible for funding under the Complete Streets Grant. So that's why I'm thinking that the price tag will be about $250,000. So hoping that you guys can come and definitely spread the word if you could to your friends and family members, drag them along with you. So it's going to be held at 6:30 p.m. next Wednesday at the library.
Okay. And this is all part of downtown revitalization. So it's Blake Street. It's envisioning Blake Street updates.
And a small portion of Pierce Street that extends from its intersection with Blake to the War Memorial Park.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Brad.
Yeah,
Welcome.
nice.
For sure. I'll come back again next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All right.
Second.
Second,
Okay. Second. All right. Roll call vote. Bill Pierce,
aye.
Brad Blanchett,
Aye.
Millie Milton,
Aye.
Anthony Zaitin,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. See you guys March 4th.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Night.
Night.
Aye. Thank you.